Elon Musk's xAI has now acquired X in an all-stock transaction. Values xAI at $80 billion and X at $33 billion. In a post on X, Musk saying, quote, xAI and X's future are intertwined. Today, we officially take the step to combine the data, models, compute distribution, and talent. This combination will unlock immense potential. Joining us right now is Rich Greenfield. He's the co-founder and partner at Lightshed Partners. Good morning to you.
Hi.
What do you make of this? What do you think really led to it?
Well, I mean, part of me, Andrew, sort of believes that this was sort of always the plan, that this was sort of, everyone sort of wondered, like, why is Elon buying X? Like, why does he want to own Twitter? What is this really about? And I think as you look at sort of the AI arms race that is really unlike, if you look at the capital that's being spent and how intense the competition is between OpenAI and Google and Anthropic and X and Meta, this is an arms race of epic proportions. Here's Elon. He buys Twitter, has this incredible source with hundreds of millions of people creating exclusive data, information that flows through X every day. Sure, Threads exists and Blue Sky exists, but none of them have caught on.
Rich,
you're there, but no one's really using it.
I need to stop you just so we're on the same page and we're looking at the same set of facts. And I'm a big fan of a lot of the things that Elon has done. But let's just go backwards and go through the history of this, because you're making this out as if this was the original plan. And I just would recite to you what actually happened in reality, which was he wanted to buy X. At the time, said it was because it was a town square that he wanted to create a sort of a full town square where all sides could speak political sides. That was the original intent. And at the time also said that he thought it could become a financial services company. That's what he said publicly at that time. He then decided actually that he didn't even want Twitter at one point and actually went to court to try to avoid having to buy Twitter. So the idea that this was preordained from moment one is a little bit of a stretch, I think. Okay, then he gets it. The value drops precipitously, just what it was because of advertising and the like. And at the same time, he starts to build xAI and gives a % of that business to the folks who owned X, in part, I think, not only because they were using the data, but as a make good for the fact that the value had dropped as much as it had. You can continue from there, but that's actually what happened.
I don't think you can dispute any of those facts. What I'm getting at, though, is a town square. Like, what was the ultimate purpose of building that town square? And we can debate whether it feels more biased one way or another. I'm sure everyone has their opinion of, like, what actually is happening on X. But
what do you mean? There's not a debate about it, Rich. Do you think there's a debate?
What I mean is there is still more dialogue that happens on X every day than what I see happening on Threads and on Blue Sky. Like
100%, but it's not. It hasn't turned out to be. Just look, and I say this just factually. It's not about having a political view. It hasn't turned out to be what I think the original intent was. You agree with that?
I would agree with that.
Okay, I just want to keep the facts. Because when we started this conversation, it sort of went into this other place as if you were suggesting this was sort of the plan from moment one. And that he was the Messiah. And by the way, he may be the Messiah. I'm just saying it didn't happen that way.
I'm just saying we all were wondering, why did he want to buy it? Sure. Did he want to get out of it? And remember, we were on CNBC talking to you why he wasn't going to be able to abandon the deal, that there was no way out. But I don't think he actually wanted out as much as he wanted a much lower price. He realized he was massively overpaying, and that's Elon's mistake, and that's his problem. But the idea of having a global town square, having all of this information where, look, Andrew,
I agree. I'm just saying Rich, all I'm suggesting is it was a pivot. I'm saying I don't believe, and I don't think you believe, maybe you do, that the original intent was an AI-focused intent, that he was going to hoover up all this data, that was the reason he was purchasing it. And I don't believe if you go back at all within the first 12 months of the purchase before or after, that was part of any of the discussion.
We weren't even talking. I mean, OpenAI hadn't even broken onto the scene. We weren't talking about AI at that point.
That's my point.
However, what is inside Elon's brain and what was really going on is something that we're never going to really know. What we do know, Andrew, is that going back to that original why buy X was because it had incredibly unique information that couldn't be found anywhere else on real-time conversation all around the world and had failed to live up to its potential under prior management. That's the facts. And so whether he paid the right price or not, whether he realized he was going to shift this into AI or into some other thing, the idea was he had an incredible amount of content and real-time information that couldn't
100%.
be found anywhere else.
We're
and I believe
100% aligned
what's
in that
happening.
regard.
And what I believe is happening
Rich, it
is
took
he is
10 times
worried.
as many employees to make sure you did nothing on the laptop or the Wuhan lab origin. So, get rid of 90% of the employees and actually start putting every side of an issue on Twitter. So I would say Messiah, yes, at this point, whether he lost or not. But what did you say?
What I'm
he
getting
might
at,
be the
Andrew, and
Messiah?
what I think is really
I say he might be the Messiah.
Might be
I'm
the
not
Messiah.
saying he's
Okay.
not.
All
I'm
right.
just saying that in the context of how this whole transaction came about and what the original origin story really is relative to the way Rich portrayed it from the beginning, I think is a little bit different. Having said that, I think he made the pivot, and he's obviously been very successful making that pivot.
I'm not saying it was a Trojan horse to AI when he announced the original transaction.
Right. And that was the point I was trying to make.
It was a Trojan horse for something. It wasn't about buying an ad-supported Twitter. That was certainly not the goal. I don't even think he really likes advertising all that much. But the reality is there was a plan to use this data for something bigger. And I think what's really interesting about this transaction of going from 10% ownership to it being completely owned by xAI is now there's no debate, no fiduciary responsibility to sell this data to anybody else. This now can be proprietary to xAI.